Hi, we're going to talk about molecules and bonds right now. So this is a little basic chemistry that you'll get next year, but we need to understand some of it now in order just to understand DNA, its structure, and how it functions to provide the information needed to operate living organisms, and also how that information can be passed down to new cells and to new individual organisms, to new offspring. So over on the left here, where I'm circling with the mouse, and I'm going to try. Yep, that's all I can do. Oh, I didn't mean to skip to the next slide. Let's see if we can go back. Okay, so over on the left here, we have three different ways to show one particular molecule. And if you can guess what that molecule is, some of you may know that this is H2O, or water. So you can see that when we say H2O, we're literally talking about the chemical composition of water, because there's two H's, which are hydrogen atoms, and one O, which is an oxygen atom. And in these three different ways of representing the molecule, we've got this one, which is like a ball and stick structure of water. And then this one is something called a Lewis dot. You don't need to know all these details. This is a different one with dots, as you can see. And then this one simply has these lines connecting the atoms, and those lines are what we call bonds. So the bonds in this one are here, the blue things. Here are the bonds that are just lines. And in this one, they give you a little bit more information, but we're not going to get into detail about this type of diagram at this time. You'll learn about it next year. Anyway, so these are all water molecules. It's a very simple molecule with just three atoms in it. And atoms are really the basic building material of all matter, of all stuff in our universe. Okay. And over on the right here, we have a whole bunch of other slightly more complicated molecules. And they are all organic molecules. You may not be able to see it very well, but for instance, this one right here, this is a fructose molecule, which is a type of sugar. And then this one here is testosterone. So that's a hormone that you probably know is very important, especially in the male body, but it's also found in females. So what do I want to point out about this? Well, first thing, I want you to understand the idea of an atom, which, like I said, is a basic unit of matter. And these are things like hydrogens, oxygens. Carbon is a very important type of atom in living things. I'll talk about that more in a minute. And let's see, in these diagrams, we also have, you might see over here, there's an N. So that is see if you can guess what that is. It's a nitrogen. It's a nitrogen atom. And in this one, you can see some C's in this one. So those are carbons. But actually, because these are organic molecules, meaning molecules that make up the stuff of living organisms, they actually all have a lot of carbon in them, because carbon is really sort of the primary structural atom in living things. And so, in fact, in these different diagrams, everywhere that you don't see a letter, everywhere you see like a meeting point of lines, like here and here and here, everywhere you see a meeting point, but there's no letter there, that actually means that there's a carbon there. They just don't bother to write them because they're so common in organic molecules. So this is like carbon, 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 etc. Tons of carbons. Okay. And then the lines are the other important thing that you want to focus on. The lines are the bonds. So you can think of bonds simply just as connections between atoms in a molecule. So we've got atoms. Those are like the building blocks, bonds that connect them to make molecules. And what do we mean by molecule anyway? Well, a molecule is simply, if you were to take a substance, whether it's water or whether it's table salt or it's sugar, and you were to divide it up into the smaller pieces, the smallest piece that was still sugar and still had the properties of sugar, still behaved like sugar, still tasted like sugar if there was enough of it to detect, that would be a molecule. It's the smallest unit that has the properties of that substance. So this is truly water. And if you make it any smaller, if you cut off this hydrogen, it's not going to be water anymore. It's something else. Okay. All right. So that's molecule, bonds, and atoms. And